Hello. Marcy Ben here from Think Premium JA. And without further ado, here's part two of the video on things you didn't know about the Seventh Day Adventist Church. So one of the things that people actually don't really think about is, as a member of the church, in order to actually have the privilege of like voting and officially, like, let's say, heading a committee or actually being elected on committees, you do actually have to be a baptized member of the church. And here's why. At the end of the day, what people don't realize is by getting baptized, it actually speaks to your level of integrity. You're willing to take this public commitment to God in front of everybody and say to God that, hey, I'm ready to die of my old self, die of my flesh, and live with you. And we are the remnant church. We believe that, and I'm not forcing my denomination on anybody, but we do believe that, hey, in order to make it into the kingdom of heaven, you need to honor and live by all of God's commandments, all of them. And you need to be walking with God. And one of the commandments is honoring the Sabbath and keeping it holy, right? If you are now saying that you can't even honor that, then we're really not going to take it seriously. And it's even evidence in James chapter 3, verse 5, and it reads, using my trusty Good News Bible here. I'm telling you the truth, replied Jesus. No one can enter the kingdom of God without being more born of water and the Spirit. Unless you go through that water baptism, you won't get baptized. Now, did you know that there are multiple types of baptisms? I actually didn't know that until recently. There are actually multiple types of baptisms, but the most commonly accepted one is the water baptism as a consenting adult. Now, I'm going to go through the different types of baptisms just so people are aware, because again, many people didn't know. You have the sacramental baptism, which is baptism by water. You have baptism of the desire, which is like explicit or implicit desire to be baptized by the church. There's baptism by blood, and that's by Wikipedia. Now, I'm going to focus on the four methods of baptism. The four methods are immersion, which is immersion underwater, submersion, aspersion, and effusion. Now, different churches do different things, but generally there is an immersion underwater. Now, some of them may do the ones where you get baptized by a river, and or like let's say a sea or whatever it is. There, everybody has their own thing, but typically that's one that's worked on. When I was an infant, I would have gone through an infant baptism where, a little glass of water is poured over the infant's head. So they actually go through the whole process of baptizing. So they actually immerse you. Now, with an infant baptism, you're not really seeking salvation. With the adult baptism, where you actually go through immersion underwater and everything, and it's not just left for adults, but kids can go through it as well. That one is not just symbolic, but it's actually one that's recognized by the Bible. Some of them use baptism by wine. Some can. So if I'm hearing, some of them use blood as well. I don't know what that's about. Some of them it's just really spoken word. So you literally just like, it can even be a phone call or by mail. You say that, hey, I'm baptized. They read you your rights or whatever, and you're baptized. That's not the one that's recognized by the Bible. And the one that is recognized in the church is actual baptism by immersion in water. Now, again, different denominations have their own thing. So, for example, in the Catholic Church, you have the infant baptism and you have the actual baptism with immersion. I would have done the infant baptism. I had no choice, obviously. My parents set that up with my godmother, and they weren't even Catholic either. So big winter Catholic all girls school, and hey, that if you're a Catholic, you do you, but it wasn't my thing. So I hope I explained that part a little bit there. And again, with aspersion, that's the one where they sprinkle the water on. Just to make sure I'm clear. So you can sprinkle it or spray it on. The affusion, that's pouring the water over the head. So that's the infant baptism. So like the infant baptism actually pour the water over your head using a fountain. Immersion is when you actually dip somebody in the water, and submersion is actually done by completely leaving the person underwater. Funny story. When I was being baptized, I swore because I saw the people like movies and videos where people actually get like baptized and then they go under the water and they stand there for a long time and it's like a whole thing. So I thought that was gonna happen. So I was like literally holding my breath and the pastor, you can actually look on the video and everything. It's really funny. He was actually looking at me like, Marissa, why are you holding your breath? You thought I was going to dunk you? I was like, yeah, I was actually really nervous about that. Everybody laughed at me because the whole church could see the video. And he was laughing. I was like, Mercy, no, there's a towel. We're just gonna like bring you up and down. We're not doing all of that. Why do you think that? I was like, because I was really nervous. I really was though. So I hope I made somebody feel that much safer. And guess what? If you need further guidance as to what it might look like, and it's totally safe for kids to do. I've seen like kids as young as 7, I believe, actually get baptized. It's pretty safe. You can actually check out my baptism video and you can see for yourself. So we discussed baptism. The next one is not wearing ornamental jewelry like rings, earrings, bracelets, makeup, painted faces. So that's like lipstick, rouge. And that's actually in Isaiah chapter 3, verse 16, and First Timothy chapter 2, verse 9. So I'm going to speak to Isaiah 3. And guess what? Yes, we know that you're the one worshiping God and not your makeup or whatever. We get that, But you also need to understand is some people make it an idol. Some people, and I can speak to when I used to wear weaves. You have a lot of ladies in the Seventh Day Adventist Church. They wear weaves, but you're not going to necessarily see us wear makeup. I mean, I used to love my lipstick, but at one point, if I never had it on and I went on the road, I felt uncomfortable. So you start kind of putting your let's say your lipstick or your makeup over, let's say, having a relationship with God. We want people to actually see you and you be comfortable coming to God as a clean vessel. Because at the end of the day, you're born naked, you go back to the earth naked. Right? So don't make it an idol, and we take it out for that reason. I mean, but to each is their own. I mean, I have seen ladies come with like their painted nails or um their makeup after a while. Once they choose to become Adventist, you adopt a pledge. The pledge has 11 parts, and one of it is letting go of the makeup. So you see the awnings that you put on the eyes, called eyelashes, and the weaves, and nothing wrong with the weaves. You can still have the weaves. You can still have your braids or whatever. I've seen ladies wear a little bit of lipstick. I've seen ladies wear a full face of makeup. Nobody's going to run you. But if you were really serious about being a baptized child of Christ and taking this pledge before God, then that's something you're going to have to rethink. And it's actually said in Isaiah chapter 3, verse 16. The Lord said, look how proud the women of Jerusalem are. They walk along with their noses in the air. They're always flirting. They take dainty little steps, and the bracelets on their ankles jingle. So it's like a sign of you being proud. As I said before, it's like you idolize it more than, let's say, just having a relationship. You're so proud and conceited because you have that there. That I'm not saying every woman is like that, but you do have a lot of women, especially ones that wear a lot of makeup and depend on it, and they don't go on the road unless they're beat, or it's not the norm for them to wear their baby face on the road. Yeah, it speaks to a level of insecurity and a level of pride. When I say that, now there's things wrong with taking pride in your appearance, but their ways and their ways. Shouldn't be a case where you're limited to just wearing that instead of loving and serving God, because at the end of the day, that's what we're called to be in relationship with God, not relationship with Maybelline and L'Oreal. Not knocking Maybelline and L'Oreal, but you get the idea, right? And the next Bible verse now would be First Timothy chapter 2, verse 9. And First Timothy chapter 2, verse 9 reads, I also want the women to be modest and sensible about their clothes and to dress properly, not with fancy hairstyles or with gold ornaments or pearls or expensive dresses. And it goes further in chapter in Timothy. It says, but with good deeds, as proper for women who claim to be religious. So pay less attention to what you're wearing and your appearance and focus more on your relationship with God. As I said before, there are women in the church that will wear a little weave, wear a little braids and thing. You might wear a little, like a touch on thing. That's not my style, as you can see. All natural, crooked parts and all. But don't make it your God. So I hope that helped there. So if it is something that you are very concerned about, like you can't part with your makeup, you can't part with your weave, just like how some people literally don't get baptized because they can't part with eating pork, pray about it. Pray about it and seek God's help with that. For me, I know God was working on me for years before I got baptized. Like during the pandemic, I know I had a relationship with God, but like during the pandemic, God was really, 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 really working on me. So a lot of things, by the time I got to that point of being baptized, I was already open to letting those things go if I hadn't already, if that makes sense. So the next thing is abstain from strong drinks such as liquor, wine, beer, tobacco in all forms. Now, you're not going to usually see a serious Adventist smoke. You're not going to see a serious Adventist drink. You're not going to see us consume narcotics. So let's say Christmas time in coming up. I'm in Jamaica. At the time of this video, I'm in late October. You're not gonna see us use like rum in our Christmas cakes. You're not gonna see us use rum in our sorrels. You're not gonna see us like at a bar partaking in drinks. We'll consume non-alcoholic drinks. We might use extracts, but you're not really gonna, or even like a fruit wine or something, but we're not really drinking drinks like that. We're not out here drinking like that. So if you see an Adventist out there drinking liquor and tobacco, maybe they're Adventists. Maybe they're swaying in their persuasion a little bit, but we really don't do that. And I implore you that if you see somebody like that, don't judge them, just pray for them. Because we all have our walk with God to deal with. We all stumble. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has their own vices. And some people have that as a vice. And I'm not judging anybody, but I'm just letting you know, so at least you know why you don't usually see Adventists like drink or smoke or anything like that. That's just not our kind of get down at all. Right? And that's actually explained in Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 18 to 20. Now, speaking of spirits, something that people actually don't realize as well with Seventh Day Adventists is that we don't believe in the soul being immortal after death. Once one person dies, that's it. Because in order for someone to be viewed as a living soul, there needs to be breath in the body. When Adam was being formed by God, he was given breath, he was giving soul, he was given a beating heartbeat. If he's not breathing, there's an absence of a beating heartbeat. That person is no longer a living soul. They're dead. And once you die, you have no sense of what's happening around you. That's it. Life ceases. All sense of knowing or knowledge, emotions, feeling, wishes, desires, plans cease. They die with you. I'm gonna actually get to the Bible verses on that, no worries. But going back to the consumption of alcoholic spirits, we are on Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 18 to 20. And it reads, make sure that no man, woman, family, or tribe standing here today turns from the Lord or God to worship the gods of other nations. This would be like a root that grows to be a bitter and poisonous plant. Make sure that there's no one here today that hears these solemn demands and yet convinces himself that all will be well with him even if he stubbornly goes his own way, that would destroy all of you, good and evil alike. The Lord will not forgive such a man. Instead, the Lord's burning anger will flame up against him, and all the disasters written in this book will fall upon him until the Lord has destroyed him completely. And you can't say that you're doing one thing and then you're going against it. You can't say that you serve the Lord your God, you're taking a pledge like this, and then you disobey that pledge. You can't say that you serve the Lord and you don't honor his word. That's not how this works. You commit to a relationship with God, you commit to a relationship with God. He will not be mocked. He will not be ridiculed. God is a jealous God and God is a just God. Like, I serve a God of love. I serve a God of kindness. I serve a God of restoration, but I also serve a God that should be respected. Now, sadly, not all Christians are believers of God. And I'm going to be very direct in saying it. So many of them don't practice what they preach. Many of them really even don't read the word. Many of them don't have a prayer life. And, everybody has to experience judgment their own way when that time comes. And it's not my place to judge or condemn anyone, but I will say that you can't say that you serve God in one way and then you're doing something completely different. That's not how it works. And as a matter of fact, alcohol really isn't even that good for you. When you see people with alcohol addictions, many of them tend to be broke. You don't usually see rich alcoholics that stay rich for a very long time without getting intervention. And it even says it in Proverbs 20, verse 1, drinking too much makes you loud and foolish. It's stupid to get drunk. Drinking too much makes you loud and foolish. It is stupid to get drunk. There's no benefit for you consuming alcohol like that and allowing yourself to get into dumb situations. Now, there's another verse in Proverbs. I'm looking for it. I'm looking for it. I just want to find it and give it. And guess what? You see, if you are there consuming things like alcohol and you, let's say, happen to be wealthy, you're going to lose it. And it even says it in Proverbs 13, verse 22. Good people will have wealth to leave to their grandchildren, but the wealth of sinners will go to the righteous. Now, I'm not saying that if you choose to have a drink and you are not an Adventist, that you're a bad person. Nobody's saying that. But what I'm saying is, if you take the oath, you really should be mindful of what you're doing, because you represent God in everything that you do. And take it from somebody that's seen both parents backslide and a sibling backslide. Everyone that backslides around somebody makes it at least 3 times harder for that person to eventually go and seek salvation. Ever thought of that? So you doing one thing and then saying, okay, no, it's just a one drink or whatever. People see you. And your life is a testament of God's goodness and mercy. And if you can't even take your relationship with God seriously, you don't look like you operate from a sense of integrity. That is one. And how am I, as a non-believer, supposed to listen to anyone that says, hey, go get baptized, if I know that, let's say, the persons around me who are baptized are adulterers or drunkards or or are spendthrifts or gamblers? How would I take it seriously? So in your own conduct, you make a mockery of God. And when you drink, not everybody can handle their liquor. So you have to be careful. It's just as bad. And guess what? Persons a person's words, and this is said in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 4. A proverb's words can be a source of wisdom as deep as the ocean, fresh as a flowing stream. What you say has to match what you do. And if you're saying that, I'm a Christian or whatever, and you can't even have self-control, I don't know, maybe before you go and condemn somebody, you need to check that out. Because again, you in your own conduct, you pull people away from God. So if you are having a challenge, let's say with alcohol consumption, nobody's perfect. I understand what having a challenge with pornography and masturbation and fornication looks like, for instance. I get that. I'm not judging anybody. I understand what having a challenge with swearing looks like or profanity. I get that. You need to speak to God about it. You need to repent and you need to learn to die to the flesh daily by removing that habit. So you need to work on that, because at the end of the day, you don't want that to stop you from getting salvation. You never want to make that your God. Right? Let's come off of that. There is another one that I wanted to share with you in another Bible verse. So find it. So find it. There's another one I wanted to share, that would have been like so helpful when it came on to that. I just want to find it, man. I'm determined to find it. It's okay. I'll get over it though. But yeah, at least you get the idea where the whole alcohol thing comes from. The next one now that I wanted to touch on that people don't really talk about is, of course, you need to abstain from unclean meats. And who can forget Leviticus chapter 11? Now, Leviticus chapter 11 goes through it with intimate detail. And I really appreciate the scope that is covered in that chapter. If you don't mind, I'm actually going to see if I can read through the entire thing. Putting up that verse, and I'm going to find it for you. There's another thing that I wanted to touch on with the concept of life after death. I really like what my pastor said about that topic. It's really a topic that a lot of people don't talk about, especially in this day and age where we live in a world where people think that necromancy is safe and that these new age practices are good for you and everything. That's actually not the case. And it actually says so in Leviticus chapter 19, verse 31. Do not go for advice to people who consult the spirits of the dead. If you do, you'll be ritually unclean. I am the Lord your God. Anybody that tells you that, hey, I see my grandmother in a dream and she tell me XYZ is a demon you're chatting here, is a demon you're talking. That you did not see your grandmother die. You did not see your father in a dream. You were speaking to a demon. You need to stop. It's very dangerous. Because at the end of the day, especially you as a believer in Christ, who are you really believing when you say that? Hmm? You didn't say you believe in a God and then now you're straight up talking to demons. Like, the soul is not conscious after death. When a person dies, his body returns to dust. It literally stops existing. And it actually even says it in Ecclesiastes. I'm gonna go to Leviticus, don't worry. I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten. I have not forgotten at all. Storing out the Bible verses that I want to share with them. Don't worry. Don't worry. And it even says it in Isaiah chapter 8 as well. Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20 reads, you are to listen to them. Listen to what the Lord is teaching you. Do not listen to mediums. What they tell you cannot keep trouble away. So I would like to consult with mediums and fortune tellers and reader man and organ man and all of that. So you mix in the demons. Those spirits will follow you. And whatever you do there, anything you mix up with there, they will always come back to you to collect. Word curses are real things. Sadly, we live in a world where people practice witchcraft, voodoo. It's a real thing. Please don't get involved in that because you're cursing your generations. It's not just you that gets affected. You are affecting your generations four levels down. So your first, second, third, and fourth generation gets affected by you when you do that. So please don't do it. And it even says so in 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 Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 5 to 6 about the dead. When they die, that's it. They're no longer existing. So you're trying to have a communication channel with them. It's a lie from the devil. The devil's a liar. And I know you're hurt and grieving is painful. I understand that. Let that go. Speak to God. Let it go. Whatever you think you're getting from that fortune teller or whatever it is you're using, it's a trick of the devil. And once you start buying into that, there isn't really much that can be done for you unless you repent. And even then, you still run a risk because those spirits come to collect. And it says so in Ecclesiastes verse 9 to 6. Yes, the living know they are going to die, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward. They're completely forgotten. Their loves, their hates, their passions all died with them. They will never again take part in anything that happens in this world. You're a Seventh Day Adventist. We don't believe in the spirit being immortal after one dies. Once you die, that's it. We believe that when the second coming comes, those who are living will be resurrected with God, and at the appropriate time, those who would have gone before would have also been brought back up as well within that time. There's nothing that happens before them. So your soul isn't sitting in limbo or whatever. Your grandma is looking down on you from heaven. That's not how that works. And again, if you buy into stuff like that, and there's some denominations that buy into that. And as I said before, there was a reason why I couldn't necessarily buy into certain denominations. I just never felt comfortable. I went to a Catholic all-girls school. Nothing against Catholics. If that's your thing, that's your thing. But there are some things that were said that it just never felt right to me. Even at that young age, it just never felt right to me, and I never ever identified with it. So, whatever I say or whatever your religious teacher says, I would implore you to go back to God in prayer about it. Thankfully, God has been working with me, and he's actually guiding me through having this discussion with you, believe it or not, through the Holy Spirit. And, he's highlighting verses I would have highlighted in the past as well. So I can actually help, to add some clarity there, but I really do hope that this helps. But I would say to anybody though, that if you have any doubts, just talk to God, because it even says here, after all this, and this is in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13, after all this, there is only one thing to say: have reverence for God and obey his commands, because this is all that human beings were created. God is going to judge everything we do, whether good or bad, even things done in secret. So if you think you're doing stuff and nobody don't see it, God sees it. All right. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 1, it says, I thought long and hard about all this, and I saw that God controls the actions of the wise and righteous people, even their love and hate. No one knows anything about what lies ahead. So nobody can predict that. So let's say you go into a fortune teller, reader man, or whatever it is you do. Let's say you can see in the spirit, unless you are being gifted by God, And yes, God gives people different gifts. So some people are seers, some people are hearers. Some people have the gift of speech, some people have the gift of song, you know, different things. Some people have the gift to teach, some people have the gift to serve, some can speak in tongues, some can interpret tongues. That's a gift from God. If you're perverting it, speak to the dead, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. And and I don't want to be cryptic, but I do want to highlight this. And it says so in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 3. One fate comes to all alike. And this is as wrong as anything that happens in the world. As long as people live their minds, as long as people live, their minds are full of evil and madness. And suddenly they die. But anyone who is alive in the world of the living has some hope. A live dog is better than a dead lion. Yes, the living know they're going to die, as I said before, but the dead know nothing. They have no further reward. They're completely forgotten. Their loves, their hates, their passions all died with them. They will never again take part in anything that happens in the world. We all have to die. Choosing to go against God will result in death. And even The Simpsons has this video about the rapture. The second coming is real, and you want to ensure that you're on the right side when it happens. And one of the things that the Seventh Day Adventist Church is, I wouldn't say built on, but it's actually a big proponent of where is we believe in preparing not only ourselves but the people for the second coming of Christ by sharing the good news about him so that they have an opportunity to get close to God before that time comes, right? And I would hope that even after me doing all of this, you make the decision to get to know God for yourself, because I had to make the decision to get to know God for myself and build a relationship with him even before finding a church home, because and I'm really sorry to say this, but even the church, there are a lot of lukewarm Christians, and the devil has found his way in the church. He's the one leading sermons in some of these churches. It's not just in any denomination. You have some Seventh Day Adventist churches that are like that. You have some Baptist ones, some Catholic ones, some you name it, Methodist, Anglican, it's all over. So you have to really get to know God for yourself. We believe in being the remnant church because we really focus on following the Ten Commandments in full detail, start to finish, including honoring the Sabbath, which is the seventh day of the week, and keeping that day holy. So, hope this helps. But yeah, let's go back to Leviticus. End up talking about the concept of life after death, and I moonwalked clean over Leviticus. May I'll find the chapter and everything and put it back. Yeah. God is still working on it, so he still loves me. And it, all of my best subversions. Where is it? Yes, here we go. Right. So, Leviticus chapter 11. When it comes on to the consumption of unclean meats, now, at a quick glance, I'm going to focus on 3 verses. I'm going to focus on verse 7, verse 8, and verse 9. But we're still going to read the entire chapter for the sake of clarity so you get a full idea. So let's talk about verse 7. And it says in Leviticus chapter 11, verse 7, do not eat pigs. They must be considered unclean. They have divided hooves, but do not chew the cud. Do not eat these animals or even touch their dead bodies. They are unclean. You can eat any kind of fish that has fins and scales. Now, pork is actually bad for you. But one, is a high source of sodium. So if you're someone that's hypertensive, you really shouldn't be messing with pork. 1, and 2, there are all types of like worms you can get from undercooked pork, right? And even cooked pork, once you leave it in your fridge for too long, it develops all sorts of worms. So you run the risk of getting tapeworms, all sorts of stuff, especially if you don't cook your pork properly. You used to love a piece of pork, a pig steak and a stew piece. Piece of the pork as well, and look at beef. Don't know a thing got what if a spinach, what if a peas? Yeah. Coconut milk, of course, after the night. Yeah. You know, with a little too chili pepper, not too much, it's a little too, you know, keep it there, it's so too. I get it. It's not good for you though. Stuff's garbage. It's really bad. And even like ham, I understand like Christmas is coming up. Oh my gosh, ham is nice, especially like you find different ways to cook. But it's not healthy for you. You don't fucking ham this. Listen, a lot of the times when you slap on weight, you're someone that likes to eat pork. You're someone that's hypertensive and you wonder why your blood pressure spikes a lot. Pork cancer. I can tell you from experience, when I would eat like a lot of ham, you see the January up, I have hypertension. Can you imagine at my young age, developed it at 29 due to a surgery. So careful. Be careful with that pork. I understand it might taste good, but don't mess with it. So let's read the entire chapter of Leviticus, chapter 11, so you can get some more insight. And it reads, the Lord gave Moses and Aaron the following regulations for the people of Israel. You may eat any land animal that has divided hoofs that also chews the cud, but you must not eat camels, rock badgers, or rabbits. They must be considered unclean. They chew the cud, but do not have divided hoofs. Do not eat pigs. They must be considered unclean. They have divided hoofs, but do not chew the cud. Do not eat these animals or even touch their dead bodies. They are unclean. You may eat any kind of fish that has fins and scales, but anything living in the water that does not have fins and scales must not be eaten. Such creatures must be considered unclean. You must not eat them or even touch their dead bodies. You must not eat anything that lives in water and does not have fins or scales, and scales, sorry. You must not eat any of the following birds: eagles, owls, hawks, falcons, buzzards, vultures, crows, ostriches, seagulls, storks, herons, pelicans, cornamentans, hoopaloopies, or bats. All winged insects are unclean, except those that hop. You may eat locusts, crickets, or grasshoppers. For example, John the Baptist actually ate like crickets and grasshoppers. It actually says so. Like on a side note, it actually says so in Matthew that he would eat like insects and wild honey. It actually says it in a book on Matthew. I believe it was. Yeah, I'm gonna find it eventually, but it actually does say where John the Baptist really was like eating like wild insects and honey. He really wasn't out here like consuming a lot of stuff. He really focused on keeping himself pure and really just like serving God like wholeheartedly. So he wasn't even like mixed up with a lot of stuff. I'm looking for the Bible verse. When I find it, I will get it to you. Anyway, let's move right back on to Leviticus with my easily distracted self. Moving back along. So yes,